Hello, I'm Brad Sarin. I'm the superintendent of the Sun Prairie Area School District, and I have the honor to be facilitating a program called Conversations with Ollie Berge.
And I'm Ollie Berge, trying to answer all these tough questions that Brad's going to ask me.
Ollie Berge was the superintendent in the Sun Prairie Area School District from 1962 to 1975, and was really at the center of many of the formative developments of the Sun Prairie Area School District as it built out. And this is our effort to try to capture the amazing stories that Ollie tells. And so today I'd like to talk a little bit about the high school, which when you transitioned here from Cedar Grove School District in 1962, the high school, which is now called Cardinal Heights, but at the time it was a brand new high school built in 60 and 61. But when you got here, it didn't have some of the amenities that you thought really a high school should have.
Well, the high school was built, I suppose, in minimum conditions. In essence, I suspect that financing had a large role to play in that. And so when I arrived here, we have two things going. One is we had a new housing development being built called Capart, which would have 280 homes, and we had projections of large enrollments. The new high school, which was built prior to knowing much about Capart, was not built to accommodate any more students than they had now had, which had a total enrollment was around 1,250, I think, in the school system. And so it was built with that type of projection. So when I arrived here and Capart started their construction, and we got some estimates of families, and I should add that besides the 280 homes that were being built in Capart, that the Air Force flyers that were moving in here could also live in the city of Sun Prairie. Mm-hmm. And so there was a large development of homes going up in Sun Prairie because of it. Two major builders, the Don Simon Builders and the Valley True Builders group, were building homes as fast as they could build them. And so you didn't only have Capart to contend with, you had this other construction concern with kids coming in. So we knew the high school was going to be a problem. So we immediately bought 30 acres of land, and I should add that every building that I was involved in has some unique things. We bought 30 acres of land from Joe Hanley Implement, and for $30,000, $1,000 an acre, and to be delivered on, let's just say, on June 15. And on June 15, the clerk brings me a check for $30,000 to deliver to Joe Hanley. And I'm in my office, and in comes Joe Hanley with an attorney with a quitclaim deed claiming that they are refusing to sell the land, and they're taking it over again. Well, here I am, a new kid on the block practically, and I've been here probably 2 months. So here's a lawsuit already. And so we had to go to a county judge with this to get that overturned, that his didn't apply, it wasn't legal. He couldn't overcome what was already done. So we got to keep it. I have a hunch that there were thoughts about this land is probably going to be worth a lot more than $1,000 an acre. So anyway, so we got to keep the land. And we had the 30 acres until we could build onto the high school. Otherwise, there was no land adjacent to the high school. The boundary of the building was practically the boundary of the high school land. Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, the proposal was for like 8 classrooms, a band room, a chorus room, and in the back we built a big, large vocational room, large auto mechanics room, which they didn't have, the vocational program. Built a couple of large home economics rooms in the back of the building to provide home ec for the kids. So, and then we had a woodworking room. So those units were added, which they didn't have before, and were really welcomed by. They were very well, attended by students. So we were glad we did that. But anyway, it also included an auditorium. The auditorium, I proposed that it be for like roughly 600 students. I thought that was a little large for the thing, but you got to start someplace and come down. So anyway, the board was totally opposed for 600 students. It never passed. And I should say this, we had, during my 13 years here, we had 12 referendums. And we had a large group of taxpayers from the town of Sun Prairie that would come to our meetings and oppose them, our proposals. I'm getting off the track now, but anyway, when this high school proposal was there, they had a large group of people there, and it passed, but it just barely passed. The next year at our annual school district meeting, which is always the fourth Monday of July, at least it was then. I'm not sure what it is now.
It's a little later now, but
anyway, they had a program in the town of Sun Prairie where the town board members, 9 of them, I believe, were each to call at least 10 people to come to our annual meeting and vote down the budget, whatever it is. The annual meeting, and this annual meeting was held, after we had built the addition to the high school. So I'm getting a little confused here. We built the high school addition, and then we had this auditorium, which was very controversial. But I kept proposing it that it really wasn't an auditorium, it's 3 classrooms. I proposed it as 3 classrooms because we had an operable sliding door in the middle of it where we could divide it into 2, and we had been used to using stages for classes in the grade school now for the past several years because we were so crowded. Sure. So there was nothing unusual about saying we'll use the stage for a 3rd classroom. And so you keep talking about 3 classrooms and 3 classrooms rather than an auditorium. Well, it passed, fortunately, among much controversy, and the school board said, well, they'd go for one for 200 students. And I said, well, that's not big enough. We have to go bigger than that. Well, I said, well, why don't we think about that? So we postponed it at a board meeting and come back next time, and I got the board to agree to 300 students. And that still, to me, wasn't enough, so I said, well, let's hold it off for a while. Anyway, we finally got to 500, and I got, I think, 4 out of 5 votes out of 500. Out of 500. So we finally got the auditorium, and at that point it was a very well planned auditorium, I felt, and it did have an orchestra pit, which hardly any high schools had an orchestra pit. And it had these operable doors to make classrooms. If you want to have tests on one side and classes on the other, you could have 2 classes going at the same time. They were soundproof. And you also had little balconies up on the walls with lighting for the stage. I saw that at a theater in Chicago some couple of years before that, and I thought that was really useful that they used it so much in that play whatever play it was. So I had to add that to it too. Well, there was some controversy about that when people saw that. Who paid for that? But anyway, it got built, and we had people come in and look at the auditorium from different schools because word got around that that we had a nice new auditorium. Now today, it doesn't look like too much compared to what we have with the new high school. Sure. That's really something. But anyway, that was always interesting. And but the next year, at our annual school district meeting, the town of Sun Prairie brought in the vote on that for our budget that year was like 174 and 185 against. We had almost 400 people in the auditorium. They brought in the whole township practically, and they voted down the tax proposal. Or let me reword that a little bit. As soon as it came up to vote for the tax, their leader jumped up right away, and he said, "I move that we reduce the budget by 12%." And it was seconded, and so now you got to vote on it. And of course, I think the assumption was that it probably wouldn't pass, but we didn't realize how many people from the township and other townships too. The farmers were very concerned about the taxes, and so everybody is, as far as that goes. And we didn't expect that it would be accepted, but it was. So then it was moved that the meeting be adjourned for 3 weeks for consideration. And then it was also moved that a 16-member budget review committee be appointed with 8 members from each side, so to speak, to review it between then and 3 weeks later. And so they went through the budget, and everything that they take out, whatever you take out practically hurt the kids. Mm-hmm. You can take out a tractor, and that's one thing. You can take out some blacktop, but you start taking out library books and reading books. Now what you're hurting kids. You're not hurting me or them, it's kids. And so that became quite an issue. So it finally got down to where it was agreed upon we would reduce the budget by 1%. So instead of reducing it by $450,000, it was reduced to $41,000. So we had to reduce the budget, but but that was kind of because of the auditorium. That building left a sour taste for quite a while.
Sure, I think it's just fascinating that what is now the Cardinal Heights, but was a brand new high school, which was underbuilt a bit. That you brought all of fine arts, all of the vocational technical education, career and technical education, including family and consumer education, automotive, all of the woodworking, and then also the auditorium that had so many innovative features. We just had a musical where we had an amazing group of kids in the pit playing, and that all sources back to your care for kids and your passion to engage the community and trying to figure out a way to fund just amazing opportunities for kids. And even today we talk about career pathways and academic and career plans, where all of that comes from is you. In 1962 and 1963 when you
I don't need that much credit. I had help.
Yeah, I know you did.
I had a lot of help.
Fascinating story. Thank you for what you do for kids and for Sun Prairie.
Well, I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Ollie.